Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. I've got a really fun video today, which is going to focus on some really new and weird morphs that are coming out. I say weird, I mean every time we think that we've got all the morphs you can possibly think of for ball pythons, there's a few more that just come out. And some of the ones in this video are not 100% new, but most of them are. They're quite rare, and there's a couple in here, one in particular which is really new, and there's another one that is just weird and I don't actually understand what it is. So we're going to take a look at those. Obviously I'm going to save the best till last, and hopefully Bobby is going to calm down and help us out here. If you're wondering why Bobby is in every single one of my videos at the moment, it is because Bobby is getting a bit older. He's got a little bit of a tendency to gain weight, and so Bobby is kind of being forced to exercise a couple of times a week. He has never been interested in exercise. I've had him in different types of enclosures. He's been in vivariums, tubs, racks. He's had climbing opportunities or not climbing opportunities, and he never really changes. He just likes to, well, he just likes to think about food and wait for food, basically, and that's all Bobby ever does. So yeah, I'm going to keep making him exercise. We're going to keep Bobby at a nice, decent body weight. But anyway, enough about Bobby's obsession with rats. We're going to take a look at these morphs. I'm going to tell you where they came from, who made them, give credit where credit's due, and then I'm going to tell you kind of where I see these morphs being used in the market and what makes them so interesting. Because like I said, there's been so many times in the past, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 years where I've really thought that the ball python hobby was kind of coming to a pinnacle and we were finding all the morphs we could possibly think of. Like with milk snakes, for example, there's not a huge amount of new morphs that come out, but with ball pythons, they seem to have this phenotypic plasticity, you'd call it, in a scientific kind of jargon, or this variable appearance, basically, where new morphs just keep coming and cropping up again and again. So let's head over to Morphpedia and Morph Market and check them out. So the first one on our list today is the stranger ball python, which, as you can see, it looks kind of cool as it is. This was first produced by IRES Reptiles, or IRES, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's part of the mahogany complex, and it's an incomplete dominant, which a lot of people still call co-dom, and people will argue with me over. Me, sometimes, honestly, I still say co-dom, but the truth is we're now told we're supposed to say incomplete dominant. Anyway, all that means is that it's not recessive and there is a superform. And obviously, another thing you can notice is this isn't exceptionally rare and it isn't exceptionally new. But what I would say is that there's still so much to do with stranger that I'm still counting it as a rare morph, as it were. And I'm still kind of counting it as a new morph because I think there's just loads of different things that could still be done with this morph. And I'm kind of interested. I mean, this one's taking off. It's already going in a good direction. And I'm kind of interested to see where it goes over the next kind of, I guess, 5 years or so. Anyway, got to catch my breath, I've had a long day. Looking at the snake, you can tell it's got a kind of a partial dorsal stripe most of the way down its body. You can tell it's in the mahogany complex because it's nice and dark. It's got a bit of reduced pattern. And honestly, you could be forgiven for thinking it's kind of in a similar kind of vein to cinnamon and black pastel and stuff like that, and mahogany, of course. But it's a cool looking snake on its own, but it's when you combine it with other morphs that it really comes out and it becomes something special. And surprise, surprise, it's when you combine it with clown that it turns into something really special. So I mean, if you look at this next snake, this is by GB Pythons in Lombardy. Shout out to them because they've produced something really cool here. This is a stranger cinnamon clown, and I mean, you look at that and it doesn't look anything like a regular ball python, anything like a regular clown. You can tell that the cinnamon and the stranger combined, these two unusual dark genes, have made something really unusual. And you know, getting this result with a couple of genes, not a 4, 5, 6 gene combo, I think is very cool, and it instantly shows you why Stranger is special and why it would make your breeding project special. Me, I'm not breeding a lot these days, but if I was still planning projects, I think Stranger would have to be in there, really. And then we move on to another one by IRES, or ERES. Again, I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce that. But this one is, I mean, it's up another level again. It's a black pastel Stranger Clown. But that's just 3 genes, and it's gone a very different direction to the cinnamon Stranger Clown, which is interesting because some people still say black pastel and cinnamon are the same thing. I don't think they are. But I mean, you can tell the pattern's amazing. It's brighter than you'd expect as well for that combination of genes. And the clown just works so well with them. It's got like, it's hard to see on this photo, obviously. I know it's not a big photo. I'll try and zoom in a bit if I can. But this is like, there's pixelation, there's unusual shades of color. It's a, I can understand why they call it Stranger, because it's a stranger looking ball python. Obviously that's probably not why they called it that, but you can tell it looks really different, and that's just a really cool gene to watch, and it's a really cool one to invest in if you are planning projects. And again, I know it's not the newest, but I think it is one that's going to go ahead and just create some incredible stuff in the next few years. Second on my list is, you know, how could we skip it? The Monsoon ball python. Now this is a recessive gene, first produced by Dave Green. I don't know a lot about Dave Green, sorry, but whatever the case, I hope he's making lots of money off of this because it's extremely popular. And again, this one is relatively common now. It's not the newest gene out there, but I've included it in this video because it is one of the weirdest genes out there, if that makes sense. It's like, in the way that pinstripe completely disrupts pattern and changes pattern on a ball python, Monsoon does even more. It just takes over the pattern of the whole snake. I mean, while I'm talking about this, even Bobby's looking at this photo. But it's a really weird gene. It completely dominates the pattern. It completely changes the appearance of the snake. And it's recessive, and it's reasonably new in the sense that there's still not a lot been done with it. So we'll just take a look at a couple more Monsoon combos here to see what I'm talking about, like how it's starting still in the early stages of going in different directions. So this is a special Monsoon ball python from Triangle Reptile and Rodents in Youngsville, North Carolina. They've produced something extremely cool. I mean, everyone knows, if you've seen Special, I say everyone knows, I mean, if you are familiar with Special, you'll know that it does really nice stuff with the pattern of combination morphs, and this one is no exception. So it's got this beautiful light tone. It's brightened the Monsoon kind of background color. It's also disrupted the Monsoon pattern even more, and if you look closely, it's given a really nice kind of pixelation kind of effect that you'd sometimes get with granite or yellow belly, for example. And again, I mean, that's just one gene added, and it's changed the appearance. And this is why I say there's a lot to be done with Monsoon still. I mean, that, I think, even if you didn't use it for a project, whatever, that's just a really cool looking snake. And you can imagine as that matures to a 4-foot long animal, that's going to be an awesome creature just to look at. And now here's where it starts to diverge a bit more, and it starts to get even more interesting, in my opinion, with Monsoon, is when we move on to this one. This is an Enchi Lesser Monsoon female, and it is produced by Dave Green Reptiles, who we just mentioned a moment ago, in Phoenix, Arizona. And he's done something really smart here. So he's got Lesser in. I mean, Lesser's just a nice gene. It always works well. It's like butter. They're the same thing. They make the pattern nice and light and bright. But he's added Enchi in as well. And Enchi, we know, has a reducing effect on pattern. So this Monsoon gene that's all jumbled up, he's added Enchi in here, and Enchi has reduced the pattern. Sorry, just taking a pause there. Enchi has reduced the pattern. And what I'm thinking is, down the line, people using this gene in projects, you should look at this and say, well, how could I reduce this pattern just to this stage, like with this Enchi gene combo here, and add contrast and brightness? What would happen if you had Enchi and Super Orange Dream in a Monsoon combo, for example? that is something interesting to think about. So yes, I think there's a lot to do with Monsoon, and honestly I can't really predict where it will go, but I just hope people are going to keep going towards enhancing the pattern and creating contrast and reducing the pattern at the same time, even though the pattern is what makes it unique. It requires a little bit of vision, really. So next up on our list is one that, again, you'll probably all have heard of it, and it's not super new, but it's new enough that there's a lot to be done with it still, and that is the sunset ball python. So a sunset ball python has a kind of a normal pattern, but the pattern is a bit reduced, the alien heads are a bit mixed up, the flanks are a bit different, but overall it's just got this wonderful sunset tone to it. You know, this nice dark orange and this beautiful rich pattern and colour. Well, mainly rich colour that kind of just gives an overall beautifying effect to the snake's whole appearance. I can't actually remember who first hatched a sunset, if I'm honest. I've completely forgotten. This one in any case was made by, or produced by, Tulix's Little Reptiles in Inglewood, California. Shout out to them because it's a cool animal. But you can see sunset again on its own is a really cool morph. And then we move on to this one. And this was made by, who was this made by? Ken Masek Reptiles in Spring Hill, Florida. And this is just a sunset clown. But I mean, just adding sunset to clown, it's a double recessive combo, so it's always going to be expensive. I mean, it's a fantastic investment, but they just make an amazing combination. It's got this deep reddish orange rich color that almost reminds you of something you'd see on, like I don't know, almost something like a short-tailed python or something like that. But it's a really wonderful background color. It's different to a regular ball python. And me, I'd love to just see this in a pied combo. I think that is really cool. And I think the whole orange head is something really cool as well. So I mean, hats off to them. They've made a kind of a smart move of this one. And that's pretty awesome. But again, I just mentioned pied. This next one is a sunset pied male. And this has worked really well. This is by Captive Bred Specialties in Waukesha, Wisconsin. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, given that I'm English, but you know. And the reason this one works well, this is interesting actually, because this is a low white pied. So you've got the lovely pied background, which is always nice. It's contrasting with that sunset color, and you've got the sunset funny kind of jumbled up pattern coming through as well. And that is just a really amazing, beautiful looking animal. And again, what would happen if you added Orange Dream or even Super Orange Dream to this? You just don't know. I mean, what would happen if you added Albino and Orange Dream, for example? So this is a gene that's just going to go in so many different ways. It's already so popular. Everyone wants to work with it. And you can see why. It's just a really nice color. So that's pretty cool right there. Now we're getting down to the last two on our list, which are getting weirder and weirder, basically. This is the really weird stuff you're waiting for. So first up is a recessive morph produced here in the good old UK by Darren and Joe at D&J's Pythons. They are kind of award-winning python breeders here in the UK. I've spoken to Darren many times online, and he's a really helpful person. He doesn't mind getting back to you, answering questions, helping you out, even if you're not buying something from him. So that's kind of cool. That's a nice attitude to still find in this hobby, because you don't get that attitude from everyone, unfortunately. But anyway, the Tornado is a recessive gene. It just mashes up the whole pattern, and it gives you this wonderful kind of quite bright pattern and color overall. The background pattern is quite dark, but the dorsal blotches and stuff are kind of like quite nice and light, almost bordering on yellow. And they've often got a nice bit on the neck as well. I mean, all the pattern is different. It's all disrupted, and it's just really an amazing looking animal. There's not much more to say about it. So again, this is one where who knows which way people will go with it, but I start to think, well, what would happen if you did add Orange Dream to this? What would happen if you added this to a pied combo? And what would happen if you got more color, more brightness, and more contrast in that pattern? How would you do that? Would special be an option, or would it just turn everything to a pixelated background? Honestly, I really don't know. There's none of these for sale yet. and there's not a lot of combinations to look at and think about, but this is one to have on your radar and think about for the future. When these become available, it might be a good idea to invest in one, because 5, 6, 7 years from now, this could be the next big thing. You just don't know. So I would say keep an eye on this, keep this on your upcoming morph watch list, and honestly, how it will interact with other morphs, I really couldn't tell you. I know it's recessive, and that's about as much as I know. How it will interact, I really don't know. So this could be one of those genes that gets very, very exciting very, very quickly when you start adding it to combos. Now, last but not least on this list is something altogether different. So a lot of you will have heard of Mike Wilbanks. He's been in the business for a long time, and he's had a lot of world firsts and produced a lot of new things. And he's produced this animal called an atomic. So an atomic ball python is, we think, recessive. It basically has one gene on one side of the body and not on the other side of the body. And it can have other genes going on at the same time. So if we look at this, this is a fire eclipse, he's called it. 100% heifer clown, and you can see that one side of the head is a different color to the other side of the head. And it goes all the way down the body. And the question is, how on earth is this possible? You know, there's examples that he's got. Let me just find one. There's some down here. One side you can see that one half of the snake's body is scaleless and the other isn't. Now this is really, really interesting, because from a genetics point of view, I don't fully understand how this is happening. Some people would have said to me that sometimes he produces these from a recessive pairing, and then other times it just doesn't happen. And why that might be, I really don't think I could probably tell you. I think, to be honest, this would be good. This would be a gene where it's good to hear from someone with a, you know, PhD level kind of understanding of genetics, to be honest. The first thing that springs to mind as a biologist to me is chimerism. Chimerism is where an animal has one half of its body has a different genetic profile to the other half, and it can look like, you know, a cat that's half one colour and half another colour, but chimerism is very rare, and I don't know whether it can be inherited in a recessive pattern. I just don't know about it. I don't know much about chimerism other than it's interesting. Another thing that comes to mind is genetic mosaicism. Mosaicism is where an animal is a mosaic of colours, and this is like female cats, like calico or tortoiseshell cats, as we call them here in the UK. That's another idea, but again, I don't know how mosaicism is inherited. I just don't know whether it's only inherited to females. And I don't know how often mosaicism is symmetrical, so I really don't know. And the last option really is only that it could be a developmental thing happening. So I'd definitely be at, if this isn't being inherited every time a pairing is done, or even reliably, I'd say I'm really at the limit of my understanding of genetics in this example, and I would say it's anyone's guess. Or, like I said, I'd like to hear from someone who has a very good understanding of genetics. It's a bit mysterious. It's very cool though. If you could get one day a ball python that's, you know, piebald on one side, or I mean, that's not going to happen probably. That's just sounds too good to be true. But if you can get a ball python that's mostly one colour on one half and one colour on the other, I mean, you can imagine the potential for that. Again, this, I don't know what's going to happen with it. I don't know whether it will be available anytime soon, but keep an eye on it, keep it on the back burner. I'm sure that Mike will be breeding these and trying to come up with something cool with them. So there you have it. There's some interesting morphs coming out. Some of them are predictable. You'll be able to, sorry, just closing my laptop. Some of them you'll be able to do predictable pairings with them, get good results quickly. Other morphs are really weird to the point where genetically I don't have a good understanding of them, and others are too new. For example, the tornado ball python, it's going to be a while before those are available for sale. But the reason I did this video is to show you that the ball python hobby isn't coming to an end. It's evolving slowly. Over the last few years, things have changed. Is it as profitable? Is it as fun? That really depends on you, how you do things. I would say just breeding regular morphs isn't as profitable, and this is very much a hobby kind of thing now. unless you're one of the big boys with a really big reputation. But still, keep these morphs on the back burner, like I said, keep them in your head, and think about keeping an eye out for when these become available. And you never know what kind of incredible projects you might be doing, no matter how the hobby changes, despite the, the political climate we've had, the increase in prices of everything that's made it a little bit more difficult over the last few years. It's still a fun hobby to be in and to look at and to think about. And for me as a biologist, it's still interesting to see these animals that just keep popping up in different colors. So I will keep trying to come up with new videos for you and keep an eye out for new morphs to show you. I'll keep Bobby exercising, try and stop him getting too fat. Please do like and subscribe. Please do get in touch with any other ideas or comments or your thoughts on any of these morphs as well. Thank you very much.